Hey, good morning. God's blessings to you. We are in John 10. Jesus has just said that he is the good shepherd who has the authority to lay down his life and the authority to pick it back up again. Bold words. It's going to cause some division. So, verse 19. There was again a division among the Jews because of these words. You can't be neutral about Jesus. And remember, Jesus said that he comes not to bring peace to the earth, but a sword. And part of the key there to that verse is to the earth. Of course, he comes to bring peace, but what's going to happen on earth? There's going to be lots of division, and the world is going to be destroyed. Same message God gave to Noah. World's going to be destroyed, so get on board. Get on board with Christ. But you can't be neutral about him. Verse 20, many of them said he is a demon and is insane. Why listen to him? Not the first time that they've accused Jesus of having a demon. Chapter 7 they did it, chapter 8 they did it, and now here's the third time in chapter 10. This is a common ploy by the demons to call everything else demonic. Now, part of the challenge here is there is really true demonic teaching out there. And so what the demons do is they try to muddy the waters, and they try to equate everything. So everything's demonic. And this is a plague that we really have. We are so bogged down. This is the truth. No, this is the truth. And we've got all sorts of Christian denominations. I mean, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 11, well, there must be division among you. That's just the way it has to be to prove who is truly faithful. And true Christians don't baffle at this. We get it. Okay, we live in a complicated world, so why should our religion be any differently? Of course, there's going to be divisions and sects. That's unfortunate, but that's just how it has to be. But the demons are going to take advantage of this, and then they're going to tell people, well, see, it's all the same. Everything's the same. Every single religion is the same. And so it's too complicated. Don't care about it. And that is the demonic teaching, really trying to muddy the waters so we don't care. But we must say, no, there is a truth, and the scriptures clearly and plainly testify to what that is. And so our aim better to be to get to that truth. Proverbs says, buy truth and do not sell it. But here they are once again calling the Lord, who is Lord over the demons, who conquers the demons, who casts them out. They're accusing him of being a demon. And we see this in the synoptics. They accuse Jesus of being Beelzebul, of having the devil. And Jesus says, well, a house divided cannot stand. Clearly, he is not of the devil. But if they think that he is, well, why listen to him? True enough. You can't be neutral about Christ. He's either a liar, a lunatic, or he's the Lord. Pick one. Others said, these are not the words of one who is oppressed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? This is common sense taking over. And remember, John 9 just happened before, and really this entire chapter here in John 10 is dominated by that miracle. What does it mean that a man healed a blind man? Never happened in the Old Testament. Now we have to decide who this is. It also reveals Jesus is now commenting on what just happened in John 9. A blind man was healed. The Pharisees kicked him out of the synagogue. And so it's no wonder then that Jesus is going to describe himself as the good shepherd. And when he calls other thieves and robbers, yeah, he's got in mind the devil, but he's also clearly got in mind those Pharisees who just kicked a man out of the synagogue for believing in the truth. Verse 22, at that time, the Feast of Dedication took place at Jerusalem. This is Hanukkah. Really quick overview of Hanukkah. The Greeks were ruling Judea and Jerusalem at the time. They were a people called the Seleucids, and their king was named Antiochus Epiphanes IV. It's a mouthful, and he starts to sacrifice pigs in the temple. That's a big no-no, very sacrilegious. Pigs are unclean animals. And so the Maccabees, they revolt. Now, this takes place after the Old Testament and before the New Testament. You can read about it in the Apocrypha, in the books of the Maccabees. Very interesting historical read. It's not quite scripture. It's a level below, but some very good, fascinating historical events. So this guy, Judas Maccabeus, nicknamed the Hammer, leads this revolt against the Greeks, and they win. They take over the temple, and now they've got to rededicate the temple. So this is the Feast of Dedication. Now, the miracle is it was going to take 8 nights to rededicate the temple. Great number. That's the number of a new creation. 7 days in a week, you get to the 8th day, new creation. They only have enough oil for one night of burning the candles. The miracle is that that one night of oil lasts for all 8 days. So that's why there's the menorah, to recall this miracle. Now, what this is doing here, why John mentions it, is because this is the feast of dedication of the temple. The feast celebrates the temple being cleansed and being brought into a new era. And Jesus is now walking around the temple, and the same thing needs to happen. Part of what John is getting at throughout his entire gospel is that Jesus is the fulfillment of all the festivals. He's the fulfillment of the Passover. You've got 3 Passovers. He's the fulfillment of the Feast of Booths, which we read in chapter 7. And this is where the temple really starts to become a big part of the Gospel of John. Of course, that started all the way back in chapter 2 with that first Passover listed. And he's also the fulfillment of Pentecost. That's the third one. He's also the fulfillment of all these minor festivals like Hanukkah. They need a new temple, a new rededication. And here comes the true temple. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple. This is the setting for chapters 7 through 10, in the colonnade of Solomon. So the Jews gathered around him and said to him, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Christ, tell us plainly." Oh, man, this is why I wrote LOL on it, because he told you. He told you so many times, in so many words, in so many different ways. He said, "I am the good shepherd." And Ezekiel 34, Yahweh himself says, I myself will come and be the shepherd of my people. He's told you in so many ways. So many others have said this about him. It's just they're not listening. That's the problem. They don't actually hear his voice. And this is what Jesus is going to go off about after this. What else do you want him to say? He's clearly said it. This is just showing, though, how blind unbelief is. Jesus answered them, "I told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name bear witness about me." Remember John 5? Jesus lists all those witnesses. So it says, it's not only that I myself bear witness about me, and if I was the only witness, you shouldn't listen to me. But you've got other witnesses. You've got John the Baptist. You've got the works that I do. You've got the Father himself. Remember, the Father himself speaks at Jesus' baptism. So you've got all of these witnesses. Deuteronomy requires 2 or 3 witnesses. Well, Jesus has got all of the witnesses right there. He's got all of the credentials that you need, and you guys still do not listen to him. 26, but you do not believe because you are not among my sheep. That's the problem. That's why they can't believe. And this is kind of a circular problem. They don't believe because they're not a part of his sheep. And they're not a part of his sheep because they don't believe. You see, that's their circle. And it would seem then, well, how in the world are we supposed to become a part of that circle? That would be impossible to break through. Yeah, you're kind of right. It takes a miracle. You must be born again, as Jesus tells Nicodemus, born again of the water and of the Spirit. That's the miracle. That's how we become Jesus' sheep. 27, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. We know this about sheep. They actually know the voice of their shepherd. And I'm talking about the literal animals. If you've got different voices calling to the sheep, they will pick out the voice of their shepherd and follow him. Very powerful illustration from nature that Jesus is using. 28, I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. Sounds like John 3:16. And no one will snatch them out of my hand. Extremely comforting. John 10, one of the most comforting chapters in the Bible. Jesus is our good shepherd, we who listen to him, and nobody can snatch us out of his hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. And here's the big one. This is going to cause even more controversy. Verse 30. I and the Father are one. Whoa. If Jesus saying that he's the good shepherd who has the authority to lay down his life and pick it back up again is explosive, this is even more explosive. There is one God, and Deuteronomy 6, that's the great Shema, Shema being the Hebrew word for hear. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And notice in that verse, yes, God is one, but you have also got Lord 3 times. Now, it depends on the translation you're using, but there's definitely a plurality in God. And we see this all the way from the beginning in Genesis. God creates the heavens and the earth. The Hebrew word for God is Elohim. There's one God, and yet that word for God, Elohim, is plural. One God who is a plurality. 1 and 3 and 3 and 1. And this is at the heart of Christianity. This is who God is, a perfect unity, one God, and yet a perfect diversity. And no other religion has this. Other religions have perfect unity. They have one God, but those religions are just way too uniform. They're stilted. There's no room to breathe there. Other religions have diversity, polytheism, but that is violence to creation, because it means you have all sorts of gods who created their little part of the world, and then you're going to expect a lot of violence to happen because the gods are having their petty wars. But only Christianity has one God who is three persons, and Jesus is claiming to be that one God. He's claiming to be one of the persons of the Trinity. Explosive claim. It's going to cause a lot of conflict. We'll look at it next time. My question for you is, do you believe it? And you got to say yes or no. You can't say, oh, I don't know. My prayer for you would be that you would say, yes, I believe. Help my unbelief. But hey, until then, God's blessings to you. Hope to see you next time. Thanks.